Alright, I have 8 fidget spinners here from the last unpackaging, which for various reasons I decided not to test further. Some of them had problems that I would made it so I couldn't test them any further, and some of them I just had some other reasons. So I'm going to go through all of these and talk about each one at a time. Not really going to call this a losers video because some of these things are actually pretty cool, but this first one is a loser. This is this brass Teardrops spinner, which, as you can see, is no longer together. This thing flew apart while I was testing it. This post that was holding this in actually broke off and sent the whole spinner flying. But playing around with it, these things just can't be made to hold stay in tight. Everything wants to come loose on it. Luckily, you don't have to worry about this one too much because it was only a $9.99 spinner. It's not branded, so it's not something you really have to worry about. I'd just be a little bit careful buying one of this style that's not branded. You might get one of these. This is not good. And along with that one, I have this other Teardrop spinner. This one's by DUEBEL, which is a name brand. This one did hold up to testing, and it got fairly decent spin time of 4 minutes and 12 seconds. The problem is it's nothing different than the one I reviewed back in one of the earlier videos, and it didn't have a really extraordinary spin time. I was hoping to get a really long spin time out of this because another one from this company got a very long spin time. Their brass hammer spinner got a very long spin time. This one didn't, only 4 minutes and 12 seconds. And it still has the same problems as the other ones. It likes to grab your fingers when you spin it. I did get one comment on YouTube saying that maybe it's because my fingers are large, but I actually don't have very large fingers. So and plus, because of the way it grabs your finger like this, I don't really think it would matter too much how large your finger is. But this thing just doesn't work out so well. You can play with it a bit, but it's not a very good design. And since I've already pretty much gone through this design before, I'm not going to go through it again. So we'll just let that one go. All right, the next one we have is this one, which is a problem. I was hoping this would be a good spinner. It's a copper bar with little circles inscribed on it, and it spins apparently nicely, but the problem is it doesn't even spin for a minute. You can't even get it to spin. I couldn't get it to spin more than 50 seconds, and it's got just kind of a crappy 606 bearing in it. And the worst part about it is that the bearing is in there solidly. You can't get it out. I tried several times, several techniques for getting the bearing out, and you just can't change it. So I'm kind of stuck with the spinner, which costs $44.99 on eBay, which doesn't spin very long at all. It's just, you can just set it here and touch it and it just stops. So this one's a loser, and there's not much I can do about it. Next we have this one. This is a machined aluminum tri-spinner with 6 ball bearings pressed into it. I believe they call it the GT3, probably made by a small company. It only got a spin time of 3 minutes and 40 seconds, which I was hoping would be better. It does weigh 95 grams, so I would hope for a better spin time. So it's not terrible, and it's pretty good, just not extraordinary, and nothing really that I wanted to test any further. It's not the easiest in the world to spin either, but it's kind of big and clunky and slow, and didn't want to play with that one anymore. So not really a loser, but not worth playing with much anymore. This one is, it's a little 5-arm spinner with a little skull printed on the cap. This one's actually not too bad. It does spin easily. It's very easy to get to work right. And it only costs $12.99, so it's really a cheapo. But for $12.99, I think it's worth it. And it only spun for 3 minutes and 18 seconds, which was not extraordinary. But for $12.99, that's not a bad thing. I'll give you the link for that one. And then we have this. Here's an interesting one. I'm not calling this one a loser at all. This tiny little fidget spinner, which spins pretty well, and it's pretty interesting. Problem with it is when I got it in my contraption to test it, it spins up to speed so quickly that I'm just blasting the hell out of it with the air hose. I was afraid I was going to burn it up, so I just took it out and said I'm not going to test it any further. It didn't spin for very long though, and it's so light that it doesn't spin very long. But for what it is, it's not too bad. So if you want a little novelty spinner, very tiny, this one's pretty good to get, but not good for testing with an air hose. And then we have this one. This one was a bit disappointing, this little bat character here. The biggest problem I had with it was the little bat ears are pretty sharp, and when you're spinning it, it kind of scratches your fingers. It's not very pleasant at all. Sells for $35.50, weighs 67 grams, and it spun for 3 minutes and 55 seconds, which isn't horrible, but not great either. And it doesn't seem to have the best bearing in it, another 606, which I couldn't replace. So just nothing terribly impressive there, and nothing to spend any more time on. And then the last one we have is this ball, which is interesting. So now I couldn't get this to stay in my little contraption to blast it with an air hose. So what I did was I held it by the ends, the black ends, and just pointed the air hose at it and blasted it. Now what happened when I did that was one of the red ones went flying off. It turns out the red ones are just pressed. There's a bearing sunk into the housing, and the red caps are just pressed into it, so they're not in there very tight. If you hold it by the red ones and spin it, it doesn't spin very well. A little bit, but not very much. Same thing with the other red ones. It's not very good spinning that way. The main one that has like an axle to spin is the one where is the black ends, and it spins longer that way. You're not going to get it up to speed with your hands, so that it would, this thing would fly apart though. So it's pretty interesting to play with, and yeah, it's pretty cool. It's just not going to hold up to air hose testing. All right, now I'm going to make 2 more videos coming up in the next week or so with all the ones that I decided to test further. We got a pretty good bunch of them. I haven't tested them yet, but it looks like we're going to have a really nice bunch of spinners coming up here. But these are the ones I'm not going to test any further, and we'll see you in the next one.